Chapter 11. With another graceful tilt of her head, Violetta nibbled on the shoulder of Dominic's t-shirt and let out a bleat, and a burp. "She burped again," Dominic exclaimed. "It's one of her many talents," Francesco bragged. "It's her song of contentment." "Oh, Francesco, why must you always play the poet?" Salvatore groaned. "Why can't you just say your goat burps?" "Anyone can see that she's a very contented goat," Francesco replied. "I'd be content too if I could eat anything in sight," Salvatore said. Francesco buried his face in Violetta's neck. "She's as gentle as a lamb, and quite musical too, hey?" Dominic nodded and reached out to pet Violetta's neck. Between her bleating and her burping, she really did sound musical. He thought about all the pets he had dreamed of having, but he'd never dreamed of a pet goat. "I pray to St. Francis every day to keep her healthy," Francesco continued. "St. Francis?" Dominic asked. "Yes," Francesco nodded. "Father Tommaso says that St. Francis of Assisi loved animals so much that when he talked to them, they answered. Because of this miracle, he is the patron saint of animals everywhere. Isn't that right, Violetta?" Violetta tilted her head, yawned a big yawn, and then began to nibble again on Dominic's t-shirt. Even if a miracle was visited on her, Violetta wouldn't talk, Salvatore joked. She'd be too busy eating. Violetta's tug at the hem of his t-shirt tickled Dominic. "One day, St. Francis may decide to bless Violetta with a miracle," Francesca declared, and then won't you be sorry, Salvatore, for mocking her so." "Hey, she really is hungry," Dominic cried. The boys all laughed as Dominic tugged his shirt away from Violetta's teeth. "She does try to eat anything in sight," Francesco admitted, sitting down on a moss-covered rock, "but I think she likes you." "I like you too," Dominic whispered as Violetta nuzzled against his leg. "There is no better pet in the world," Francesco remarked. "I always wanted a sheepdog," Dominic said, thinking of his dream family. "A dog?" Francesco scoffed. "How can you say such a thing? A dog could never be as smart as Violetta." "And you couldn't get a drink from a dog," Antonio pointed out. "A drink?" Dominic watched Antonio squeeze underneath Violetta's belly. "Antonio, where are your manners?" Francesco scolded, grabbing a hold of his little brother's shirt. "Guests go first." Dominic's eyes grew wide as he realized that Francesco was talking about drinking from the goat. No, that's all right," Dominic assured them. "I can wait, really. I can wait for a can of soda from a soda machine or a glass of normal cow's milk from the refrigerator," he thought. Then he realized that if this really was the year 1908, such things as modern refrigerators and soda machines hadn't even been invented yet. Francesco let go of Antonio's shirt. As the bright sun beat down on his head, Dominic gulped. Now that he thought about it, he found that his mouth was dry and his throat was parched. He watched as Francesco began to squeeze one of Violetta's long pinkish teats. Soon a thin stream of milk came squirting out, and Antonio was quick to catch it in his mouth. Dominic licked his lips and wondered just what goat milk tasted like. Salvatore threw off the heavy netting from his shoulder and crouched down beside Violetta for his turn. "Why do you carry that with you?" Dominic asked, trying to get his mind off the thirst. "We worked for the padrone, picking lemons last week, and he paid us in trade," Salvatore explained, wiping the milk from his mouth. "The padrone?" "Padrone Pirozzi owns what's left of the lemon trees there," Francesco said, pointing to the orchard below them. In the bright morning light, Dominic could see the lemon trees clinging to the hillside. He took a deep breath, and the faint fragrance of lemons tickled his nose. "Since the blight killed off many of the trees, the workers have all gone, and the padrone has no one to pick the fruit that's left," Salvatore continued. We picked him 40 bushels yesterday, and all we got was this old net full of holes," Francesco grumbled. "I think I can mend it if I get a big enough needle," Salvatore declared, spreading the net on the ground. Violetta was quick to begin nibbling on its worn edges. "Will you stop?" Salvatore shouted angrily, pulling her away. "Salvatore, why must you always lose that temper of yours?" Francesco sighed. Oh, and what would you have me do? Salvatore retorted. I should smile as she chews up a day's work? Violetta is an intelligent animal, Francesco reminded him. You don't need to shout for her to understand you. Violetta lost interest in the net and began to turn her attention to the fringe on Salvatore's shorts. I wish I could eat anything like Violetta, Antonio complained. My stomach is so empty that it hurts all the time. Dominic suddenly thought of his own stomach and of how hungry he had become. Do not complain, Antonio, scolded Francesco. You just had a drink of milk. Be thankful for that. But I'm still hungry, Antonio moaned. Can we roast the birds now? No, we'll wait until we can get 2 more. They're so small that there's hardly a mouthful here for one of us, Francesco decided. Dominic thought about the foster families he stayed with and how he didn't always like the meals they made. He thought about all the times he had gone to bed hungry rather than try some of their strange-looking chili or tuna casserole. Now he would gladly have eaten any of those. What about the family you stay with? Dominic asked. Don't you like the food they give you? We don't have a family to stay with, Francesco explained. We sleep in a hayloft in one of the Padrone's barns. It's a good, dry place to sleep. Father Tommaso gives us bread once a week, and once a month we get some pork or beef. The rest of the time we must find food wherever we can. Father Tommaso looks after the orphans in these hills, Salvatore added, and he has even found some of them families in America. Dominic felt his heart leap at the mention of America. Father Tommaso has promised to find us such a family one day, Antonio piped in. Have you ever had a family to stay with? Dominic squirmed. He wasn't used to talking about himself. Sure, he replied. I've had lots of families. The other boys grew quiet on hearing this. From the looks on the brothers' faces, Dominic could tell that they were impressed, and he didn't want this moment of being envied to end. Did these families feed you? Antonio asked. Dominic nodded. Where are they now? Salvatore demanded. Are they looking for other children? Are they down south at Calabria? Dominic struggled to fight back his tears. It was all so confusing. He wanted so much to tell them the truth, but how could they understand? I'm not from Calabria, he began. My home, where I came from, it's far away, he stammered. It's across the ocean. It's across time, too. I know you won't believe me, but I was born in America. It's where I live. It's where I got my shirt. I live in the future, about 100 years from now. The 3 Candiano brothers stared down at him wide-eyed. Antonio's mouth had dropped open, and the only thing to break their silence were the sounds of Violetta chewing and bleating and singing her song of contentment.